Derek had flown dozens of times before. Red eyes, puddle jumpers, cross-Atlantic hauls. He was no stranger to turbulence, stale peanuts, or armrest battles. But tonight felt different. It wasn't just the eerie stillness at cruising altitude, or the way the flight attendants whispered more than they spoke. It was something he couldn't place, a buzzing in the back of his brain that had started the moment the wheels left the tarmac. He tried to shake it, focusing on the clouds just outside his window, drifting like ghosts against the moonlight. And then, he saw it. Stories like this have been submitted by viewers who claim the Hollow Man followed them. If anything strange has happened to you, leave it in the comments. There was a man, or something that resembled a man, standing on the wing. He wasn't gripping anything for balance, wasn't tethered by ropes or harness. He just stood there, perfectly still, coat flapping in the wind like he was casually surfing through the sky. Derek blinked once, twice, then rubbed his eyes. Still there. A featureless face turned in his direction, tilted, almost curiously, as if it knew Derek had seen him. He slammed the call button. The attendant appeared with an arched brow and a fake smile so tight it made Derek's skin crawl. "Sir, everything okay?" she asked in a too calm voice that sounded rehearsed. Derek stammered something about a man, no, a thing, on the wing. Her smile cracked a millimeter before she glanced at the window. "Sir, we're 37,000 feet in the air," she said. "There's nothing out there but clouds." Then she offered him ginger ale and Advil, like he'd complained of a headache instead of witnessing the impossible. By the time the third passenger moved to another seat to get away from the crazy guy by the window, Derek was sweating. He pulled out his phone to record, but every time he pointed the lens, the wing was empty. No figure, no evidence, just the drone of engines and darkness stretching into forever. He barely noticed when the seatbelt sign blinked back on and the captain's voice came over the intercom, staticky and stiff. "Flight 392, prepare for minor turbulence." Minor turbulence turned into a full shake and rattle within minutes. The plane dipped once, hard, and Derek's stomach shot into his chest. Gasps filled the cabin, and the flight attendants struggled to keep calm, strapping themselves in while murmuring on their radios. Derek glanced out the window again and nearly screamed. The Hollow Man, the name just came to him, was now crouching low on the wing, head tilted downward like he was listening. He turned back to the aisle, desperate for someone, anyone to believe him. "He's real," he hissed. "He's on the plane. He's not just outside anymore." A teenager one row over snorted, "Okay, bro," before returning to his AirPods. Derek noticed the elderly woman across from him give a cautious glance, but when she looked out the window, her expression softened. "There's nothing there," she said gently, like he was a patient slipping too far into a dream. The lights in the cabin flickered once, then again, a third time, and then they were gone. Total darkness. A collective gasp rose from the passengers, followed by hushed voices and the sound of phone flashlights being turned on one by one. The plane was still aloft, engines humming, but inside, it felt like a tomb. A child cried somewhere in the back. A man yelled out for a flight attendant, but no one moved. Then he was there, not outside, not imagined, but standing in the aisle. If you're still watching, you're not alone. Most people turn this off by now. But you want to see what happens next. Maybe you should stick around, or subscribe before it gets worse. No footsteps, no sound, just the Hollow Man, tall and unnatural, as if he'd been built for another world with different rules. He stood motionless, one foot behind the other like he was always mid-step, and his face, if it could be called that, was a pale void, a blank smear where features should have been. People screamed. Some leapt to their feet. Others froze. The mother of the crying child clutched her toddler to her chest and sobbed openly. Derek stood slowly, heart pounding in his ears, as the Hollow Man began to move. Not walk, glide. Silent, smooth, terrible. With every row he passed, the lights in the passengers' phones dimmed or blinked out completely. Derek reached for his phone and it instantly died in his hand, screen black. Battery still showing 73% just seconds before. Panic spread fast. Passengers shoved past one another, trampling armrests and bags. The flight attendants were gone, vanished like they'd never been there. The overhead bins started creaking open and shut on their own, the cabin groaning as if something massive pressed inward from outside. The hollow man paused beside a man clutching his Bible. The man recited prayers until his voice collapsed into a rasp. Then, the hollow man moved on. Derek backed up, row by row, until he hit the bulkhead. There was nowhere left to go. All around him, the few still holding on to sanity huddled and whispered. Some wept. A few had gone stone silent, eyes wide and unfocused. He turned, ready to face the thing, and found the hollow man already there. Inches from his face. The void where eyes should have been now felt like it saw everything inside him. Time stopped. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe Derek simply forgot how to track time when a figure from nowhere stood close enough to erase everything that made him him. But just as suddenly the lights blinked back on, the engines roared louder. The captain's voice returned. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be beginning our descent into Salt Lake City shortly. Please return to your seats." The hollow man was gone. Just gone. As if he'd never been. Except everyone on the plane now looked at Derek with the same frozen expression. They'd all seen him. They knew. A mother pulled her child close and whispered, "Don't look at him again. He sees who sees him." And Derek realized that seeing wasn't the worst part. Remembering was. The plane landed safely. Emergency personnel greeted them at the gate, citing technical malfunctions and equipment failure. No one mentioned the figure. No one said a word to the press. The story that reached the news was a brief note about unusual turbulence and communication errors. But as they filed off the plane, one by one, each passenger avoided Derek's eyes. No one wanted to remember him. No one wanted to remember it. Weeks passed. Derek didn't fly again. He barely left his apartment. But sometimes when his phone flickered at night or the hallway light outside his door buzzed just a little too long, he'd check the shadows and catch a glimpse of something tall and still standing just outside the frame. Waiting. Watching. Like it was always meant to be on the plane. And he had been the one who invited it in. New horror drops every Hollow Wednesday. Subscribe before you find someone else.